A better effort, but what's going on with B-Rob? Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. Always have takeaways from the preseason game. So those are up early. Go check that out. And don't forget, the John Keim Report is presented by AAA. And also, my friends at Huel are back, folks. You know the deal, 40 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals. Really, folks, it's a meal. And I know I've told you my favorite is chocolate and strawberry banana. I've got salted caramel on the way, and I cannot wait till I get it to taste that because that's one of my favorite flavors. Anyways, you can go to huel-DOT-com, use the password Keim, get 15% off if you're a new customer. See the terms and conditions. Let's get to the big day for the Commanders. And I say big day because it starts with news about Brian Robinson. I'm going to get to the game in a minute. But I want to spend a few minutes talking about Brian Robinson and his future in Washington. Now, the other day, I'll tell you what, folks, I don't think I missed clues. I don't think I paid enough attention to him because the other day I told you I thought he would be on the roster. Well, whoops, that was wrong. And usually I feel like I'm pretty good at reading the clues. That one, I'm not going to make excuses. There were clues and you got to read them right and add them all up. And because if you do, they've been there. And so that's why I say, like, in some ways, I was a little bit surprised by all that's happened or come out the last day or two. In other ways, I'm not, because when you look at it, it's like, oh yeah, there's this. Oh yeah, there's that. But I still felt like at the end, they know what you have in him, whether or not you think he's great or not, but you know what you got. And then you have some question marks beyond there. However, I think we saw tonight that they could have some guys who can help and they're not going to miss a whole lot. It's not like Brian Robinson has been tearing up the league. So I think it begins with that. So the depth of the room, that's one reason why they felt like they could make this move. And it's something that they talked a lot about. And if you heard press conferences with Kingsbury, if you heard him with Quinn, they would talk about the depth in the running back room. And when Dan Quinn was asked about it tonight, he mentioned the depth in the running back room. And by the way, he said they did tell Robinson on Sunday that he was not going to play tonight. And he told the rest of the team, Quinn did, later that night in the meeting. So they all knew going into the day today that he was not going to play. And of course, folks, this really pretty much all but spells the end of his career here. And so, and again, I'll get to that in a second. So, but it was the emergence, I would say, of Chris Rodriguez has had a good camp. I thought he had a really good scrimmage last week. And then, of course, Bill Krosky-Merritt. And so I think I think they've been very pleased with him for sure. And there's no doubt about that. And I think that obviously plays a role in this. But I also think it's the emergence of how Rodriguez is doing a nice job. And I always felt like he did a nice job at the end of last year too. And I wondered why he didn't get more run. And so you try to figure things out, but he followed that with a good camp. And it's not like Robinson was standing out in any particular way. And it's funny because a lot of times I point out what guys are doing when the special teams drills are going on, right? Like you see Zach Ertz doing X, you see Marshawn Lattimore doing this. When McLaurin's here, you see him doing this, or Deebo Samuel doing this. I watch Austin Eckler go through his routes, go through where he's supposed to go on certain plays. Didn't always see that there with number 8. So, sometimes, whether he was doing it or not, I think the other ones did it consistently. And there's a reason why those guys, I mentioned all those guys, there's a reason why they've lasted this long. So, anyway, the Jordan Schultz reported the other day that they've been shopping him. Listen, it's new information, but when that's coming out, it means they've been doing that for a little bit. And I don't think it's the first time that they've tried to do this, right? So I don't think that this is for other teams around the league that they know that he's probably on thin ice here. And one of the things you add that up, right? And then I go back to before the draft. And one of the things I heard is from someone here was just, hey, there are 2 positions they want to address for sure. You want to make sure you get somebody at offensive line, and they wanted to make sure they got a running back. Now, at the time, you're kind of thinking, okay, just as a complement to what they have. So yeah, B-Rob can do this. Eckler's doing that. You need a guy who can hit those home runs and all that. But then when you start looking at guys they're bringing in for work, it wasn't just the quote unquote home run hitters. It wasn't just the Travion Hendersons that they were looking at. It was also guys lower in the draft who like could be every down backs, and they weren't differentiating between power or speed. So, and obviously Robinson offers power. So when you see that and you go, okay, all these clues were there, and then they saw the depth in the room and they felt like they can move on. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, again, it's not like Robinson has been tearing up the NFL and the numbers aren't very good. Now, it's not all on him, but when you have 3 years of a sample size, there is enough there to go on. Since he entered the NFL, he is 17th in rushing yards per game at 56.8, 40th in yards per carry at 4.1, 29th in yards after contact at 1.90. He's 22nd in rushes of 10 or more yards. However, he's 86th in percentage of carries that went for 10 or more yards. So like they needed to find somebody else. And again, it's not all on him. The blocking has to be there, but I also felt like for Robinson that if 3 yards were there, he might get 3.5. So it wasn't doing enough on his own. And now, as far as his future here, I did ask Dan Quinn, what does this mean for his future? And it's like basically Quinn said, we'll give you an update when there is one. If nobody trades for him over the next few days, it's really hard. The likelihood is that he would be released at that point. Now, that remains to be seen, but you're not making these moves. You're not having them, like, I would say this, like they are not denying that nobody's denied that they were shopping him, right? So usually in this situation, if there's that's crazy. Like teams called us, we didn't call them, right? That's not what's happening here. That story was out there. That news was out there. There was no denying it. And then you don't play him in Monday night in this game. Well, I think it's pretty clear what the next move is beyond this, and they like what they have here. So anyways, just wanted to address that. He was not at the game, nor was Terry McLaurin. So that was Sam Cosmi wasn't here either. So there's as far as that goes, like whatever the reason is, I was told not to read too much into that. You can read into it whatever you want. What I know is there's no real change in the negotiations. And so we're still in the same spot. Like, the question will be when they get to the point where they want him on the practice field, what will he do? The next 10 days or so, 10 days plus maybe from the time he came back from the pup will be spent, ramping up that conditioning to get him game ready. So I think that's what the plan is. So I don't think he's going to be asked to practice like this week. They only have 2 practices this week because it's a short week and they play Saturday. And then you probably have 3 practices the next week, and then you get into the game week. So it's very it's very possible that the first time he'll be asked to practice would be in the week leading into the Giants game. And then the one thing McLaurin has said, he would not step on the field unless there's progression in the talks. But keep in mind, like I can see this team getting to the point where it's like, here's the final offer, take it or leave it, but you're going to play under this deal. If you're not taking it, you got to get out here and play. Then it's like, will he want to do that? But again, there's no real change. I was told there's no real change in the negotiation. So I think we're pretty much at the same point. And, it's not the best place for anybody to be. The team, McLaurin, the fans, right? Anyway, so there's that's where that is at. All right, so let's get to the game because that's what you want to know about. We can talk more about the other stuff at other times, and sure it will come up because there is another move to be made with Robinson, pretty much for sure. Anyway, so the Washington lost 31-17 to the Bengals, a better showing in many ways, right? Especially early. The offense, the first team offense, I mean, it was got down the field pretty fast. So 4 plays, I think it was, for the first touchdown, and no passes. So Jaden Daniels he's dropped back one time, but ended up to be a nice run. But no passes. They looked crisp. They looked as an offense. They played fast and they played with energy. And a really good showing for that group, considering no Laramie Tunsil, no Zach Ertz, no McLaurin, Noah Brown, they have backup guards and a rookie right tackle, whom I really, really think is doing a nice job. I think he's arguably, I wouldn't say the most improved player, but he's clear. I think he is one of the most improved players since camp opened because you don't see the struggles like you did in those first few days. So for sure. Now, hiccups every once in a while, but I'll get to him in a minute. Anyway, and I think the other thing, what you see is you feel Jaden Daniels' presence on the field. And when you see him, just the ability to make plays. And we saw that on his 14-yard touchdown run. And as he said, he would drop back. He wanted to hit Rodriguez in the corner. He said he didn't have it, was late getting to Deebo Samuel over the middle. So then he takes off running and the competitiveness takes over. And it's funny because a lot of people are like, well, he's got to slide. I don't think in that situation you want to slide. You slide like there coming down. First of all, I like the competitiveness. And I guess if you slide at the 6-yard line, but once you get inside there, like you slide, you could take a shot to the head just as easily as anything else. And yes, it's a penalty, but you see it happen a lot too. Guys do get hurt when they slide. So it's not always just the safest thing. Now, but I do like that competitiveness, but you see it, and it's what makes them special. It's what got him it got him a touchdown. So, but again, makes a difference on the field. And it's funny because before the game, I was on pregame show with 980, and the host, Michael Jenkins, asked me about the McLaurin play and Jaden play against Cincinnati last year. And it was like, does that, thoughts on that play? And it's one of the most memorable plays of the season. But I thought that play symbolized so much about what that team was about. It was the clutch catch by McLaurin, tightly covered and just contested. It was a clutch throw by Jaden, who gets hit as he's throwing the ball, but it's also the poise he showed before the play, because there was some confusion in getting the guy on there late, had to let him know where to go, doesn't get rattled, just drops back to throw it. But it also, that play was, to me, Jeremy McNichols as well. He throws a hell of a block on that play, and to me, it was like it symbolized just star backup guy doing a hell of a job. And that's what you had. Anyways, I just want to bring it up because it was brought up to me and they were playing the Bengals. But anyway, let's get to the run game, because I think that was obviously a big story because of Brian Robinson, not, with the move with him. So then you see Chris Rodriguez, you see Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Bill. What I liked is there was a variety of runs. And I think this is going to be a run game by committee, and I think using various strength. I already mentioned the Jaden Daniels touchdown run. You had the jet sweep by Deebo Samuel for 19 yards. You had a 40-yard run by Chris Rodriguez. And then you had the 14-yard run. You had a 27-yard Rodriguez up the middle. You had Krosky-Merritt going on a counter with power to the right. And so different play styles resulting in big gains. And I think that's something that is good to see. There were multiple explosive runs. And the one thing, it's funny because Quinn said he was happy to finally see be on the side with Deebo Samuel, feeling what he does on the run. Like you can feel that and the energy that it brings on those runs. And that was pretty good too. So on the blocking too was very good in the run game. And so, like, for example, on the jet sweep, you have Ben Sinnott does a good job. I really liked how he gets his knee, bends his knees, gets his hips, sinks his hips, and just explodes in there. John Bates was fantastic tonight. And I know Dan Quinn talked about it, but I'm going to talk more about it in a couple minutes, but he was fantastic. And just a reminder that it's why they made him, like, he was an absolute priority this offseason, because they knew guys like John Bates are hard to find, because you just don't have a lot of tight ends who just excel in blocking the way he does. And he is really good at it, and I'll explain why in a few minutes. But and again, you have the 32-yard run by Krosky-Merritt, just a nice job. Like, what I really liked on that play was the patience that he showed. So letting the counter set up, letting Wiley and Chris Paul pull. Wiley, both of those guys did a good job for when they were on the field, but letting him pull. And you see him patient, letting the blocks develop, letting Wiley get to his block, and then boom, he's gone. And it was just, there was a hole there, but he partly the reason why the hole was there is because of his patience and then the vision, and this boom. As it's funny because Dan Quinn referred to him as having violent cuts. That was a violent cut, and that was just a really good job there. So really liked how those guys blocked. And again, on the with Bates, I think it was on that one. I'll get to it in a minute, but there was one, I think it was on that one where blocked two guys. I think it was that one where he blocked two guys in the play just because his positioning, it was really good. But I liked what Krosky and Merritt showed for sure. And Rodriguez has done, like I said, he's been one of I pointed out last week in the scrimmage, he was really good. And I think his vision is pretty good too, right? And I just think he's more comfortable running. I think he does a better job with his tracks. And I think you see that resulting in some big gains like this for sure. Couple other things. I felt this sounds funny, but I felt Javon Kinlaw. Like I felt like the first D line did a pretty good job. I thought they got after the pass. I thought Dorrance Armstrong had some really good pressures. If you saw the game, you saw him standing up. It's what I've been talking about throughout camp. That's going to be something that you're going to see a lot more of this year. But I felt Kinlaw, like you felt the strength. There were a couple of times he had two times in the first quarter where he just stunned the crap out of the guards, where the first time was the left guard just gets into him, boom, drives him back, and just power. Another time in the goal line, you're inside with that 4-yard line, gets to the right guard, boom, knocks him up, and then gets off the block and goes and makes the tackle. There were a couple of times too where there were double teams where he's very active and powerful, and I think that's what he's going to bring. But I thought you really, really felt the size of him and the strength of him inside for sure. Jalen Lane, he had 3 catches, but I liked him. One thing they did with him is they used him a lot more on the outside. So 2 of his catches were on the outside. One was from the slot. On the first one from the outside, I like that one. It's a 12-yard catch, but the defensive back, to me, is playing for the speed. And so he's able to drive off and come back for the ball, but he creates separation with the threat of that speed getting downfield, and it's wide open. Second one, he creates separation at the top, and I think because he's driving guys off and they're anticipating maybe him going deeper, he drives them off, just a little curl coming back inside, open for 16 yards. And the last one was really good because he was not open, right? He was very tightly covered. Good ball. I think it was from Josh Johnson, but he makes a diving catch when it's a contested catch. And that's the one he ran from the slot. So just a really good job by him. One of the things I like too that he does, if you watch him, and I've seen this in practice, he snatches the ball out of the air pretty quick, but it allows him to then try and get upfield and turn. So on the second one, the 16-yarder, it allowed him to, one of them, I think, oh no, this first one, he gets about 4 extra yards after the catch simply because he turns quick. It's not, it wasn't a huge gain after the catch, but he got extra yards because of that snatch turn, right? So like it just boom, boom. And it's going to help him in other ways to get upfield. And I think it's the same thing you see on the punt returns for sure. Chris Paul, I think he's had a nice camp as well. I think he's going to I think he's earning a spot. I don't know if he'll get it yet. There's still time to go, but he is playing on some of those first special teams on field goal blocks or field goal protection, whatever. But he's done a nice job. And you see the power again. And then a couple of times where he had to pull gets out there. One time he has to pull on a pass play, but he trips, but it's because I think it was the center gets pushed back. So it gets pushed into his lane and he ends up tripping him, but he still gets over there and makes the protection. So I thought he did a solid job. Josh Connolly, I really like what I've been seeing from him. And, they've been working him a lot at starting right tackle because Wiley's had to play a lot all over the place. And I think you have to give a little hat tip to Wiley. Just because of how he's handled the situation, he just goes wherever they ask and he goes and does what he does. And I thought he did a nice job at left tackle tonight, but he's a guy that you can win with especially coming off the bench, because he's always prepared and he goes and does what he needs to do. But I think with Connolly, what I really like is what you see, again, out in space, but he did a really good job getting position on guys and turning them out. He had that multiple times where he's able to turn his guy out and create a gap for the running back on some of those longer runs. And that's one of those things that's just really, really good to see, but he fights hard to do it. Like there's a competitiveness that comes out in those situations that you see with him. And I think it's why, he continues to improve and he's going to be a good player here. If he was still having problems, I would be worried. He's not having those, like, again, every once in a while, somebody's going to get him. Von Miller's going to beat him in practice. Somebody's going to beat him in a game, but he's starting to really do a nice job and settling in at that position for sure. So good job by him. And I think that's a really good sign for this offensive line. And, so there you go. The one thing I wonder about too, because one thing they like to do is put guys in different spots. And so Julian Good-Jones working at center, I don't know what they're going to do there because I don't know how many offensive linemen they're going to keep. And it's just really, then it depends on, is Cosme on the PUP list to open the season? We don't know yet. But if Good-Jones makes it, he's primarily been a guard, but he's got to be able to play center too, because if he's going to make it, then Michael Dieter might not, right? So, and I don't know if that's, it's possible, right? Because if Good-Jones can play center, then it necessitates the need for a backup center. But his snaps haven't been very good. They're too inconsistent. So I don't know if you can go into a game feeling comfortable with him at that position at this point. At guard, he's done a nice job, but so too, like I said, is Chris Paul. And Chris Paul got the start out there tonight at guard. And there's a reason for it, because this is what he's been showing in camp. And I felt like he had a good first preseason game. Thought he did a nice job here as well. So anyways, back to John Bates. And I wanted to go over just for a couple minutes on him. Like, so I'm watching the game back again, during the game, so there's a lot of guys I'm not going to be talking about because it's too hard to pay attention to everything. And so I'm going to talk about John Bates because he was special tonight. And I think he's special overall. He's a taller tight end. So the leverage becomes a big issue. But when you watch him, he is always like, you see him, he's always ready, but he's always knees bending and always coming up. And so he explodes into guys, his hips, and then his feet are really good at getting around, but he knows where to place his head on the proper side of the defender so he can get his feet around and gain advantage, right? There are multiple times that I saw that, but it starts with it's bending the knees and then exploding up there and finishing with dips. I will say I see Ben Sinnott doing some of that too. Like I saw him on a couple blocks downfield, got into I think is one of the longer play. I think maybe on Debo's run where he's getting into a defensive back down the field, but just a good job, knees bent drive. But I've seen that from him. Still haven't seen anything from him in the pass game or Luke McCaffrey, but I've seen Sinnott block and he does a good job there. So obviously worth keeping around because he can help in those ways. But John Bates is just a special guy at that position. And it's really, again, it's knee bend, hips explode, get your feet around. He does it all the time. And his hands are really good, nice and tight inside the defender's pads. So you add it up and it's why he does a really good job. But it starts with getting leverage for a guy that height. You have to really work at it, but he's so consistent with it that it's really, really good for this team. Again, yeah, it was on the 27-yard touchdown that he did take out two defenders. So, and part of it was the defender ran into one of the other ones, but his block on the first guy knocks him into the other defender. Just so good. I mean, he's just really, really good. And, when they get Ertz out there, this is what the nice thing for them tonight was that first offense against the Bengal starters. You don't have 1, 2, 3 starters in the line. And right now I'm going to include Connolly as a starter, but he's a rookie. So let's say you have 2 starters out there, 3 backups, and no Zach Ertz, no Terry, no Noah Brown, and they made it work. And just, but the one wonder I have is they haven't spent much time. That first offense has spent no time together because Cosme's not out there and McLaurin's not out there. So the group that will be the number 1 offense has spent no time together as a whole unit. So what, obviously you want all your guys back, but what does that lead to any sort of bumpy cohesiveness early on? I don't know, but it's something to watch. But what we saw tonight was a really good job, and a good job by the coaching staff, by Cliff Kingsbury as a play caller, because I think it really kind of settled things down. Again, another night where, for receivers, who's separating? Well, I think Jalen Lane is starting to do that, right? I think I like what I've seen from him. You at least see the flashes. You see the traits that can help him. I want to see more of that from McCaffrey in the pass game. Now they use him on special teams. He started, but he's just not getting the ball. And I think you have to always go back and look and like, what is he doing to get open or not getting open? But I do know, and again, like some of the late Jalen Lane stuff, it's not going against starters, but but when he's out there, he's getting the ball. Like, I think that's a good sign. By the way, and I pointed out like McCaffrey, he was on the first kickoff as well. So clearly he's going to have a spot on this team, but you'd like to see more as a receiver. As far as some other stuff goes on punt return, I did see one of the first punt return units had Ja'Cory Brooks on it. And so he's up blocking, but he was on there, and the rest of the guys are all guys who are going to likely make the team. That does not mean Brooks will make the team, but it does mean you want to see what it looks like when he's out there. And they're really, like I said, they're really good at putting guys in spots to see what do you have. And I think you need to do that with him. Like, you're not in danger if he is cut. You're not in danger of losing him, because I just don't think that anybody's going to pick him up, not because he can't play or not worth developing, but because, again, I told you, like, everybody's got a Ja'Cory Brooks on their roster, a guy that, you hope you can get through, or you can get through, but you want to keep him around to develop. That's him. And so, he certainly has shown enough to warrant that for sure. Like, we don't know yet, like, who's the sixth receiver. Michael Gallup early in camp, you saw some signs, but you haven't seen really anything since. KJ Osborne, certainly a very possible person to watch there. By the way, Mitchell Tinsley, who was here, had a hell of a night, had a really nice catch back of the end zone over Carlin Vigors. I thought Vigors did a nice job for the most part before that. Had actually thought it was good coverage, a hell of a throw, and a hell of a catch. I liked most of what I saw from the first defense. I did not like Frankie Louvu jumping off sides on 4th and 3 and being so antsy. That's one where I wonder if Bobby Wagner's out there, if he could have held him back a little bit, not physically, but literally, like, kind of yelled to him, like, you don't need to go. They may not snap it, so just be patient. But it's the same thing with the tush push stuff. He tried to time it up, and he just, because there's only like 4 seconds left on the play clock, you got to be patient there and disciplined, and that's something that didn't happen. Igbenogany had the penalty that gave him a first down inside the 5. You also had the horse collar on Dietrich Wise. Hell of a job on the pass rush. I liked how active that group was. Like, whatever the penalty is, you can see the left hand grabbing the Burrow back there briefly. Whatever you think of it, what I like is they put pressure on him. They made it tough on him. And so, like, I liked that. Like, that's my takeaway from all that, because Dietrich Wise he's not an undisciplined player. I think the Louvu play was undisciplined, but the other ones were not. And now I can live with what Louvu does. By the way, corner Trey Amos did not play tonight because of Dan Quinn said he had some tightness in his hamstring. So they worked him out pregame, decided not to play him. A little disappointed, because would like to have seen him against that receiving group, but obviously you want to get him healthy, or just have him be healthy for sure as we move forward and get closer to the regular season. So anyways, folks, busy night, and I apologize if you're wanting to hear more about some other players. I'm trying to think of some other guys that off the top. Quan Martin, I felt like had a very good game. I've always liked what he adds out there, but he had a couple of really good tackles, just drives through the ball carrier. And you see that, and it's why he got the tight end at the goal line. It's why the tight end doesn't get in. Now they scored on the next play, but the tight end doesn't score on that play because Quan Martin is driving through his guy as he makes the tackle, and just like, he's just a good, solid safety. And I think that's a good thing. And, so there you go, folks. That's it for me. Appreciate you tuning in. I will be back on Wednesday with another episode. Oh, for you gold members, again, I still waiting to hear their schedule. So it'll either be Wednesday night or Thursday, but we'll send you a notification on Tuesday. Got to wait and see what the best day is for me and for them. So anyways, folks, that's it from here. That's it from Landover. I appreciate you tuning in. I will talk to you next time.